It was supposed to be just another morning in the life of Vincent Hale, the billionaire everyone admired and secretly feared. His name stood for power, precision, and control. People said he could turn anything he touched into gold. But for all his fortune, Vincent's world was made of glass towers, closed boardrooms, and silence. That morning, as the city awoke under a pale sunrise, Vincent sat in the back seat of his luxury car, scrolling through reports and profit charts. His mind was on margins and mergers, not mercy. He was on his way to inspect a new factory at the city's edge, a place he'd never bothered to visit before. The air there was different, heavy, dirty, forgotten by progress. Then fate intervened. As his car slowed past a landfill, the kind of place he had only ever seen from airplane windows, something made him look up. There, amid the rotting mounds of waste, sat a woman in a torn blue uniform, clutching a crying child. The sight was so wrong it felt unreal, like a painting of sorrow trapped in a place without hope. Vincent's world stopped spinning. He recognized that face, pale, bruised, and tired, but unmistakable, Maria. His maid, the same woman who had once smiled politely while serving him breakfast every morning, now scavenging in the dirt to keep her son alive, and in that single moment, the man who had everything realized he had seen nothing. Vincent's instincts took over. "Stop the car," he shouted, startling his driver. Before the tires had even fully stopped, he pushed the door open and stepped out, the sharp stench of decay hitting him like a wave. His polished shoes sank into the mud as he ran toward her. "Maria," he called, his voice trembling. The woman turned, eyes wide with fear. When their gazes met, her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her son clung tighter to her chest, crying harder now, frightened by the stranger approaching. Vincent froze, taking in every detail, her torn clothes, her bleeding hands, the exhaustion that seemed carved into her face. She looked nothing like the soft-spoken woman who had once polished his marble floors. Yet it was her. He knelt beside her, uncaring that his suit brushed against the filth of the ground. "Maria, it's me. Vincent." Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Sir?" She tried to stand but her legs gave out beneath her. Vincent caught her before she fell. "What happened to you?" And then, piece by piece, the story spilled out, between tears, between breaths, between the quiet sobs of her child. Maria's husband had died just a few months earlier, a sudden illness that drained what little savings she had. Desperate, she had borrowed money from a local lender to pay for the funeral and her son Theo's medicine. But the interest was cruel. When she couldn't repay, the threats began. Men would show up at her door, shouting, demanding money she didn't have. Her landlord threw her out, saying she was bad luck. She begged the Maid agency to contact Vincent, her employer, but they refused, claiming she had already resigned. With nowhere to go, she and her little boy had wandered the streets until the landfill became their refuge. Vincent listened, silent. His chest felt tight, guilt pressing down like a stone. He was a man who spent millions on art, cars, and meetings, yet one of his own workers had been left to starve. "Come with me," he said finally. His voice shook, but it carried command. He lifted Maria and her child into his car. The smell of dirt and decay filled the cabin, but Vincent didn't care. He told his driver to head straight to the hospital. For the next several days, Vincent visited them every morning. He watched as the doctors cleaned their wounds, gave them food, and covered them with soft blankets. Theo, once silent and afraid, began to smile again. He would hold Vincent's finger tightly whenever he entered the room, as if afraid he might disappear. Maria, however, could barely look at him. She apologized constantly, ashamed of being seen like this. But each time, Vincent stopped her gently. "You have nothing to apologize for," he said. "I do." He couldn't stop thinking about all the faces he passed daily, employees, cleaners, guards, people who made his empire run but whom he never truly saw. That night, standing by the hospital window, watching the city lights shimmer below, Vincent Hale felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, the view from the top didn't feel satisfying. It felt empty. He had spent decades measuring success in numbers, properties, and profits, but none of it mattered now. What mattered was sitting in the next room, a mother and her child who had survived because he'd stopped for one fleeting moment to care. Weeks passed. Maria's health improved. Theo's laughter returned. And when they were finally strong enough to leave the hospital, Vincent made a decision that would change not just their lives, but his own. He established the Maria Hope Trust, a foundation dedicated to helping domestic workers in crisis, women who had no safety net, no voice, no home. He provided housing, education for their children, medical support, and legal aid for those trapped in cycles of debt. Maria, at first overwhelmed, eventually became one of the foundation's coordinators. It gave her purpose and dignity. She knew what it felt like to be invisible, and she vowed that no one under her care would ever feel that way again. Vincent's life began to look different, too. He sold 2 of his luxury cars and replaced his boardroom art with photos of the families his foundation helped. He started visiting his factories, speaking to workers face to face, learning their names, their stories. His mansion, once a museum of cold marble and silence, began to fill with laughter. Theo often visited after school, leaving drawings taped to Vincent's office wall. One day, the boy walked in with a crayon picture clutched in his small hands. It showed 3 figures, Vincent, Maria, and Theo, standing in a bright green field with the sun shining above. Beneath it, in uneven handwriting, were 5 simple words: "Thank you for finding us." Vincent stared at it for a long time, his vision blurring. He had closed billion-dollar deals. He had been applauded on magazine covers. But this small, innocent gift, felt like the greatest return on investment he'd ever received. That drawing became his most prized possession. From that day forward, Vincent changed everything about how he ran his empire. He met every staff member personally at least once. He built community centers near his factories. And when reporters asked why he dedicated so much of his wealth to helping workers, his answer was simple: because one day, I found someone in a place no human being should ever be. And that day, I found myself, too. The story of Vincent Hale spread quickly, not as a tale of a billionaire's charity, but as a lesson in humanity, because sometimes, the richest people aren't those with the most money, they're the ones who choose to care. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every view helps us spread more stories of compassion, redemption, and hope. Before we go, what would you have done if you were in Vincent's place? As the camera fades, Vincent stands by the garden window, watching Maria and Theo laugh among the flowers, the sound of their joy carried by the wind, and in that quiet moment, one truth becomes clear: sometimes, the greatest fortune in life is finding the courage to care.